Welcome to the European Innovation Council podcast series, where we discuss some of the hot topics surrounding game-changing deep tech innovation. What's hot today is the recently published EIC Work Programme for next year, 2026. And here to tell us more is Keith Sequeira, head of the EIC Policy Unit in the European Commission. Keith, tell us, how does the EIC support deep tech innovators?
Thanks, Aoife. A pleasure to be here. So the European Innovation Council, the EIC, is quite unique in the world because it supports the full innovation journey from very early stage research to spinning out companies, company formation, to scaling up those companies, developing the products, and we hope to generate a new generation of world-class technology companies from Europe. And we offer a unique blend. We give grants, very substantive grants to projects, to companies. We also have an investment vehicle, the EIC Fund, that gives very substantial equity investments into companies. And we have a whole range of what we call our business acceleration services that provide access to expertise, to customers, to markets, to investors, and to innovation partners from right across Europe and beyond.
Fantastic. Thank you, Keith. And tell us, what's new for next year for deep tech startups and scale-ups?
Well, we're very proud to be announcing the new work programme, which sets out all of our funding for 2026. We have somewhat over 1.4 billion euros, so a very substantial budget. And this is continuing the very successful schemes that have been developed by the European Innovation Council. So we have nearly 2/3 billion euros for the accelerator. So that's for the startups that allows them to take risks, to develop their technologies, to get first major investments, and to really make progress towards the market. We have our Pathfinder scheme, which is for the new technologies coming out of the research base. So a little bit over 250 million euros for the Pathfinder scheme and the calls in 2026. We have our transition scheme, which is to go from the research result to the commercial pathway, often with spin-out companies, and that is open to the European Research Council, to the Pathfinder scheme, but also to results from across the Horizon Europe programme. And that takes research results and supports the technology development, but also the business development of those projects. And then we have the continuation of our major novelty that we introduced in the current year, 2025, which is the Strategic Technologies for Europe platform. So this is 300 million euros, and that's for larger investments in strategic companies. So under that call, that has been very successful this year, we offer investments up to 30 million euros in individual companies to make a really substantial investment.
Thank you very much, Keith. And I understand that the EIC has something called challenges, which is slightly different to open calls. Can you explain to us a little bit more about EIC challenges and anything that's new coming up for 2026 in this area?
Yes, so we have a new set of challenges that have been introduced in the 2026 work programme. So the approach is that the majority of the funding is open funding. So that can be any technology in any field from anywhere in Europe. And the majority of the budget for the Pathfinder and the accelerator funding schemes, as well as all of the transition, is the open. But this is complemented by some specific targeted challenges in emerging technologies and exciting areas of innovation. So under the Pathfinder scheme, we have 3 challenges in 2026 that are overseen by our expert program managers. One of those is on advanced materials for energy harvesting. A second one is on biotechnology for healthy aging. And then a third one is on deep reasoning, which is very much the frontier of artificial intelligence. And then under the accelerator scheme for SMEs, for startups, we have 5 challenges. One on new materials, advanced materials for renewable energy. A second one on fusion power, new concepts, new technologies. This is a very important area for deep tech, and it's the first time that under the EIC we've had a targeted call for nuclear fusion. A third one is on biotechnology for regeneration of agricultural soils, a very important topic in Europe. The fourth one is on the critical raw materials value chain, overcoming reliances on other parts of the world. And then the fifth one is on new deep technologies for climate adaptation. So you'll find the full details of those and the budgets in the work programme that has been presented today.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Keith. And just talking a little bit about the application process for all of the different aspects of the EIC. Should we expect anything different there for 2026? Is there anything changing?
Yes, we've made quite a few changes for the accelerator scheme. We had feedback that companies, startups felt it was taking a little bit too long. It was requiring sometimes the impression that they had to be evaluated several times. And we really want to make sure that we have the best process for selecting the high potential companies, and that investors can rely on this as well to also invest in these companies alongside us. So we've made a few changes here. We've substantially shortened the application forms. Previously, we asked for a form of 50 pages. That's gone down to 20 pages now for the full applications. And as before, we asked for a pitch deck, we asked for a video pitch, and we need some of the data on the financials behind that, but a much shorter application. Secondly, there are many more opportunities to apply. In 2025, we had two deadlines for applications. In 2026, we will have 6 deadlines for applications, so companies can really apply when they're ready. And then thirdly, we have changed the way that we are going to do our assessments so that we will do some of the due diligence work as part of the initial evaluation. So what that means is that when we select a company, we will have already done some of the work on the investment. And this is to avoid what was being seen before, that when a company was selected by the EIC, it was only then that they would start the investment process. So in 2026, some of the investment process, the technology due diligence, would already be done in the evaluation. So that means it would be much faster to go to the investments. And also we would not have to come back to the company with so many requests for additional information when we got to the investment stage for those companies that are recommended for the investment. So we think these are quite important changes. They will make things quicker for startups applying, for SMEs applying. They will also make it much faster when we get to the investment stage of the support, because we know that timing is so critical for many companies that apply and for advancing as quickly as possible in the competition for the new technologies that we're supporting.
Excellent. Thank you, Keith. And are there any new initiatives to support underrepresented groups, such as women innovators or those from less developed innovation ecosystems?
Yes, so the approach of the European Innovation Council is really to find the best innovators wherever they are, whatever gender they are, and to have very much a merit-based approach, and therefore to make sure we have no biases, that we would give a privilege to one country over another or one gender over another. But we've also seen that we would like to stimulate more applications from certain groups that we think there's untapped potential. So we would like to see far more applications coming from companies with female CEOs, female leadership teams. And we have there the Women Tech EU programme that provides for early stage founders who are female the first support to really develop their businesses to a stage where they would be competitive in the accelerator. And we also want to track what's going on. So we had a pilot called the Gendex study that looked at data about the representation of women across the innovation ecosystem. So this was about founders, but it was also about investors, venture capitalists, and fund managers. So we will have a new project that will allow us to track this over time, to see what progress we're making and where further measures need to be taken. So we really want to encourage far more women to apply and to be successful in the European Innovation Council, but also across the whole innovation ecosystem in Europe. And then secondly, we would like to support more companies coming from less developed ecosystems. We have some world-leading ecosystems in Europe, but we also have ecosystems that are not yet as developed. And particularly, we have a set of countries, we call them widening countries in Central Eastern Europe, but also countries such as Portugal and Greece, where we have introduced, and it is open already, a pre-accelerator scheme that will offer smaller grants, but still €500,000, that would support companies who have great ideas but need further support to mature those ideas, develop their business plans to be as competitive as they should be when it comes to the EIC Accelerator, but also attracting investments from private investors or other sources. So these are two important measures to really make sure we get the full potential of innovators right across Europe, which we think is so important.
Fantastic, Keith. And last but not least, do you have any final word for any aspiring EIC awardees?
Well, I would like to highlight one additional change, which is a novelty for us. There's been a lot of talk about introducing an ARPA approach or a DARPA approach, which follows the success of the US Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. This was the agency that developed the internet, the GPS system, many very important technologies, and we feel we really need the equivalent in Europe. We've made a lot of progress already. We have recruited program managers as in-house experts and given them a certain level of freedom to select the challenges, select the projects, manage portfolios. But the additional step we are taking in the 2026 work programme is what we're calling Advanced Innovation Challenges. So these are a bit separate from the Pathfinder and Accelerator challenges that I mentioned before. And what we're trying to do here is to have an approach that allows us to look at the feasibility of different solutions to a challenge. So there will be a first stage, which would be a feasibility stage, where we would select up to 10 projects. But then we would have a second stage that we would down select the 5 most promising projects, and we would give them more substantial funding to actually showcase, develop, test, pilot their innovations in a real world setting. And to do that, we would also be bringing in potential buyers, customers, procurers of these innovations to be really testing out these solutions. So we have 2 pilots that we are testing in 2026 of this new approach of advanced innovation challenges. One of them on physical artificial intelligence in robotics. So a lot of research on new robotics, but how can we put those into industrial and real world settings? And secondly, on disruptive methodologies for replacing animal testing. What are the technologies there, and to really find the best solutions that remove the needs for animal testing in clinical trials. If this approach is successful, it's something that we would really like to expand. And over the summer, of course, the Commission presented its proposals for the next Horizon Europe programme with a much larger budget for the European Innovation Council, but also an increased emphasis on this ARPA-like approach, which is what we're testing. So what we're doing in 2026 is already testing some of the new approaches for the future. We feel not only should we be supporting breakthrough innovations, but we need to be doing innovations ourselves. And this is an example of that approach.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Keith, for the in-depth insights. Unfortunately, that's all we have time for. To anyone wanting to find out more, you can check out the 2026 work programme on the EIC website. Thank you very much to Keith for joining us here today, and to our audience, thank you for listening.